Murder inside of Dovegate prison. That's what I'm talking about in this episode. Now, this popped up on my news feed, on my news app that I've got on my laptop last week, but I thought I would wait to get a bit more information on this before I'd done the video on it. So I put my news app on today, and it's popped up again today. And the person that was murdered was Stephen Strutt, and I believe he's from Merseyside. And he was killed in Dovegate prison on the 13th of July. Now, what happened here was he was stabbed to death in HMP Dovegate. And another reason why I'm doing this video is to give people an insight to what actually goes on inside of prison. Because a lot of people watch these videos on TikTok and Instagram, and all they see is lads bouncing around in the pads, MCing on, having pooch parties, and people think it's just, as it's been described, as a holiday camp. But prison is far from a holiday camp, especially if you're serving a big sentence and you're a lifer. I mean, these ones that are in and out doing a few months here and a few months there might be a holiday camp to them. But when you're in there doing serious time with a big stretch ahead of you, it is anything but easy. Now, Stephen Strutt was 42-year-old, and it says on here he died in hospital after being stabbed in HMP Dovegate. Now, this happened on a Saturday morning, 13th of July, Saturday morning, after being stabbed to death in Dovegate prison. Obviously, he went to hospital and he was pronounced dead when he was at hospital. But these sort of attacks, it's not so much murders, but there's a lot of stabbings going on inside the prisons on a daily basis. And this is what you don't get told about. All the young lads watching all these idiots bouncing around saying prison's a holiday camp. And they're all thinking to themselves, I'm not bothered about jail, I wouldn't mind going there myself. But I'm bringing you the straight fact about what happens in prison and letting you know what's going to happen if you end up in there. Because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen people stabbed on numerous occasions. Seen people stabbed in the neck, stabbed in the face, people sliced, people had hot oil tipped over them. And I can tell you now, prison is not a very nice place when you're in for a long period of time. So Stephen Strutt was serving a life sentence with a minimum of 20 years. And he was doing jail for a joint enterprise murder. Now, joint enterprise is, if you're involved in a murder, you might not have been the person that's actually committed the murder. You might have been with a group of people. On this occasion, there was 4 individuals who got sentenced to life for this murder. And it might have just been one person that's done the actual murder. You might have been walking down the street with them, and I'm just giving this a scenario. This is not what happened in this instance. But joint enterprise, 4 individuals might be walking down the street together. One individual might be armed, tooled up. They've bumped into a rival. A fight kicks off. One of the individuals has pulled a weapon out, stabbed him, hit him, whatever. The individuals died. All 4 of you are lifed off for murder. Even though you might have not had an intention to commit the murder, you might not have even known the person that you were with was going to seriously harm somebody. But because you were there, you are involved and you are lifed off for murder. So for this sentence, or for this murder, because it says the person that was murdered was Glover, who was 33-year-old, was battered with a metal bar and found unconscious in a street in Thatto Heath, St. Helens. He died 3 weeks later in hospital. Strutt, it says here, formerly of Stalebridge, Tameside, was ordered by a judge to serve a minimum of 20 years And it says 2 men and a woman, all from Greater Manchester, were also jailed for life for Mr. Glover's murder. So I did say at the beginning that Stephen, sorry, have I gotten his name right? Stephen Strutt was from Merseyside. He's not. He's from Greater Manchester. But I just thought I would bring this to the attention and let people know what goes on inside of prison. He's obviously had an altercation with someone in prison. It could be something to do with the murder that he's actually in for, because a lot of the time, what happens if you've been involved in gangland violence or whatever on the outside, when you land in prison, at some point throughout your sentence, you're going to bump into someone that was either friends with the person that you've murdered, or you're involved with something inside of prison, and rivals inside of prison is obviously it's a common thing. You have a fallout, or if you're in a certain clique and you've got grief with another clique that's inside of prison. And again, a bit like what I'm on about with joint enterprise, if your clique has got trouble with someone else, and the trouble might have started in prison, you've then got to back the lads up that you're with. So it's an ongoing thing. You bring your beef in from the street as well, and you might be enemies with someone in the prison who you knew on the outside. And I'm not saying this is what's happened in this instance, but I'm just giving you, or giving the viewers that have never been to prison, giving you scenarios of what actually goes on inside of prison. So on the morning of Saturday, the 13th of July, Stephen Strutt has been stabbed to death. And this, with it being 9 o'clock in the morning, they've probably just been unlocked for breakfast, because that's normally unlock time for gym and association on the weekends. And as soon as they've been unlocked, this is when this situation has unfolded, and Stephen Strutt has been stabbed to death. So the person that stabbed him's obviously been in his pad, thinking about it all night, stewing on it. As soon as the door's open, he's probably come flying out with his chiv and stabbed him to death. But again, I don't know the facts about what happened in prison, and it doesn't say who actually done it. But you can come to your own conclusions, or anyone who's watching me channel who's familiar, who maybe knows Stephen Strutt or knows what went on, let us know in the comments section. Everyone's entitled to their own freedom of speech. If you've got the facts, you might want to put me straight. Excuse me, but I just thought I would bring that to the attention to let everyone know that prison is a volatile place. Murders aren't very common, I would say, in the English prisons, but they do happen. And when someone's trying to attack you in either a Cat B or a high security prison, the odds are, when they're attacking you, they are aiming to kill you. Not like in the Category C's. Category D, you don't get much violence in them prisons, obviously, because everyone's on the way home, or they're trying to come up for parole and show that they've reduced the risk and they're ready for release. But in the Category C prisons, there's a lot of violence in them prisons, but it's not the same type of violence as what you get in the Cat A's and the Cat B's. Because when they're serving a long time in the Cat A's and the Cat B's, a lot of the time, the life is, if they've got 10, 20 years ahead of them, not so much 10, but maybe 20 years ahead of them, they aren't bothered about getting a bit extra bird on top, because a lot of the time, if you come into their offence when you're already serving a life sentence, you might get time added on, but it just runs concurrently, which means you don't really serve it. If it's consecutive, then they add the sentence on top of your already existing sentence. But if it's to run concurrently, which a lot of the times when I was in, I've seen people getting attacked, and the persons or the perpetrator that committed the offence were getting like 4 years, a 4-year sentence, but it wasn't added on. It was added to the sentence, but it was added concurrently. So realistically, they weren't really serving any extra time. But obviously in instances like this, if someone's in prison serving a life sentence, then you go on to kill an inmate, then you will be getting life without parole. So obviously, when it's that type of prisoner doing it and committing the murder, they are getting nothing but life without parole. There's no other option what you're going to get when you come up in front of the courts other than life without parole. If you're in prison serving a life sentence for a murder, then you commit a murder inside of prison, the likes of, who was it? I can't remember his name now, but there's a few of them that's done it inside of prison and then they've been given life without parole. But I just thought I'd bring out the attention, people, but I'll leave that one there for now. But I'm nearly at the 70,000 subscriber mark, so if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you are enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. Try and get us up to that 70,000 mark within the next few weeks. But I've got plenty more content coming. But again, if you are enjoying it, remember to comment and like. Take care, everyone.